You know, Dune Prophecy is fascinating to me. It's fascinating for a great many reasons. And some of them are because of the format, the making of prime time TV shows, and how so many of them seem to go the exact same way. Like it's like maybe they have the same writers or something. It's like they traverse IPs. The setting might be different. The outfits might be different. The layout may be different. The IP, the worlds, planets, the genres even might be different. But it's like they all do the same formula, the same setup. Now, what do I mean? Well, if you've watched Twin Peaks, you will know exactly the type of setup I'm talking about. Twin Peaks might be one of the first of its kind to do this type of TV show setup. And you'll definitely know what I'm talking about if you've seen the first two seasons. At the very least, you'll know what I'm talking about here. This sort of hour runtime, prime time aesthetic TV show, drama, intrigue, multiple characters, multiple storylines, intrigue, next episode, intrigue. And this formula, this format, continues on into other shows. Like, if you watch Penny Dreadful, it does that in there. If you watch Black Sails, it does that in there. If you watch The Sopranos, it does that in there. The Penguin, it does that in there. And in the Game of Thrones, it does that in there, of course. And HBO is always chasing after its next Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones has finished it now. And now they're trying to do it with Dune Prophecy. Well, I don't know if you quite found your Game of Thrones yet, HBO, but if in the extremely, and I mean extremely unlikely scenario that anybody from HBO ever sees this video, then have I got the TV series proposal for you. Enough with all this other stuff. If you want intrigue and crazy and comedy, do this. Do the Malazan Empire. This is a very banged up book because it is very lovingly read again. This is Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson, and we have been waiting for a Malazan Empire television show adaptation for years. This came out in the 90s, I believe. It is old, but it is fantastic. It's one of the best pieces of literature ever crafted. It's still going on. So many layers of storytelling going on. You could just start here with Gardens of the Moon and make an entire season, maybe even 2 seasons off of this one book. There's so much content in here. It is packed, and the Game of Thrones fans will eat it up. This is your next Game of Thrones, HBO. This is it. This isn't it. This is your next Game of Thrones, HBO. Do Malazan Empire. Do it. Give him a call and do Malazan Empire, okay? Yeah, okay. Now that pitch is out of the way, let's talk about Dune Prophecy. Dune Prophecy is a prequel that takes place 10,000 years before the birth of Paul Atreides, and it takes place roughly a century after the Great Machine Wars. And, well, it's based off a book, I guess, Dune Chapter House, I think. You see, I'm not a big Dune lore aficionado. I'm not. I've only read 3/4 of the first book. I plan to finish that last fourth of the first book eventually, and I plan to get to the other 5 books that Frank Herbert has written. I don't know if I'll ever get to the other 30-some-odd books written by other people and his son, Brian Herbert, and all the rest. I don't know if I'll ever get to those, but I definitely plan to finish at least the 6 that Frank Herbert did. I definitely plan to do those 6. And I haven't read the prequel Chapter House, Dune Chapter House, obviously, like I said. So I have no idea how faithful this show is to the books. This might be completely unfaithful in completely every single conceivable way imaginable. And fans of the books, Dune fanatics, what few there are, will be absolutely pissed off watching this show. It's going to happen. You pissed off the Tolkien fans with the Rings of Power. You pissed off the Wheel of Time fans with the Wheel of Time show. You pissed off the Game of Thrones fans with the last few seasons of Game of Thrones, but I honestly, that's not really your fault. The series wasn't finished, and you decided to finish it for George R. Martin. You decided to finish it for him. I haven't watched Game of Thrones, by the way. I'm one of the very few people on this planet that hasn't watched it. I'm a unique specimen here, so I plan to be even more rare, because as more years pass on, more people have watched it, and I will still remain one of the few people who have not watched Game of Thrones. So, yeah. Well, anyways, Dune Prophecy is 6 episodes. The complete first season is 6 episodes. That's the first problem. That's the first problem here. Let me explain how shows should be written in terms of like seasons. You need at the very least 8 to 10 episodes for a season, and ideally you'd probably want about 20 if it's going to be a good lengthy season. Prime time is generally between 10 to 12, 8 to 12 episodes for a season. Prime time is generally that, because you put more money into each episode, so naturally you're not going to want to make a 26 episode season with every single scrap of money that you would put into an episode of a 6 episode. You probably ran out of money, so you picked 6 episodes, just put a lot of money into those 6 episodes. We had a big, stellar cast, which this is a stellar cast, but 6 episodes, man! You might as well have just made a movie at that point. But then again, this does have enough length for 2-3 movies. It has enough length for that. And everybody on this cover here, all 4 of these actors are very, very good. Mark Strong doesn't really have a lot to go on with his character, with the writing, with the dialogue. He doesn't have a lot to do, a lot to work with, but he's an extremely talented actor, and he does very well with what little he was given. This guy, I forget his name, he's from the TV show Vikings, another show I haven't seen, by the way, and I don't know if I'll ever watch it, but he is fantastic in here. He plays the character of Desmond Hart, and Mark Strong plays the Emperor. Desmond Hart has a very interesting synopsis. The first half of this season, the first 3 episodes, he is fantastic. He is absolutely on fire, ironically, and he is fantastic. And then these 2 are the Harkonnen sisters, who are part of the Bene Gesserits. Now, at least I know enough about the Bene Gesserits to say that the Bene Gesserits are the antagonists of the entire Dune franchise. They are the villains of the entire Dune franchise. Think Palpatine from Star Wars. That's them, but they profess to be nice people instead. And they kind of technically are a little bit nicer than Palpatine was. But when you look at Senator Palpatine from the Star Wars movies, and you realize that he was both Emperor Palpatine and Senator Palpatine, and the Dark Lord Darth Sidious, he was both of these people, right? And Sidious was in charge of the clone, the droid armies for the separatist movement. He was all in charge of that. And he was also Senator Palpatine in the Republic, in charge of the clone armies. So he was basically orchestrating the entire events of the prequel trilogy. He orchestrated every single event. He was a true mastermind. He was the puppet master. He was everywhere, in every ear, orchestrating and moving and subtly mechanizing every event. That's what the Bene Gesserits do, okay? They have sisters that go into every one of the major houses, every one of the noble houses, the Emperor's house. They are manipulators. They are concubines. They are very good at moving the plot in the direction that they want it to go down. Whether this golden path is the correct path is irrelevant. It's that they are basically the true masterminds, the puppet mistresses of the entire Dune universe. They have controlled and guided the events for the past 10,000 years. These guys are crazy. they are power hungry. They say, "Oh, I live." No, you're a power hungry. No. And then they have the breeding programs, which is also gone into detail here with the breeding programs, where they pick and match noble houses. Sometimes they'll get a Bene Gesserit's sister to be a concubine to a ruler of a noble house so that they can have a child from that house, and then they can use that child to marry another child. The Bene Gesserits can control what gender their children are going to be, so they want the Bene Gesserits to be the wives of all of the ruling houses so that they can control, alright, this Bene Gesserit's going to have a son, this Bene Gesserit in this other house is going to have a daughter, that daughter and that son are going to be married. They're going to both try to manipulate their husbands into getting their children to marry each other so that these houses can have a political alliance and all this other interpoliticking and guiding the universe and the empire and all of the major houses. They orchestrate wars, they orchestrate trade wars, resource limitations, they guide all of the supply and demand of everything. And this is back before they were that powerful. They weren't that big here. It's only been a century since the Machine Wars, so they're still pretty new. And this lady here is called Valia Harkonnen. She is the Mother Superior of the Bene Gesserit chapter houses, and this is her sister. Both literally and part of the sisters of the Bene Gesserit. All the generates are sisters, sisterhood, they're the sisters, yes, but these are blood sisters. They're both sisters in the sisterhood and blood sisters, okay? They're both Harkonnen sisters, okay? I know that's a little confusing. It might be a little bit confusing. Anyways, one is a little bit nicer than the other, who is a little bit far more ruthless. It's very typical there. And the way the story is set up in these 6 episodes is basically how every primetime show you've ever watched is set up. If you've watched Rome, it's set up like that. If you've watched Spartacus, it's set up like that. If you've watched Twin Peaks, it's set up like that. If you've watched Game of Thrones, it's set up like that. If you've watched any primetime show, it's set up like that. Lots of dialogue. Lots and lots and lots of dialogue-heavy moments, especially if it's a very complicated lore setting. They'll just do a lot of exposition. They'll tell, and they won't show. They'll just tell you everything, and they'll just paint it right in front of your face, and because they think you're dumb, they think you don't understand nothing. And honestly, look, man, I haven't read any of the other books, but I followed the Dune movies by Denis Villeneuve, by David Lynch, the miniseries. I followed that story very well. So well, in fact, that the only new perspectives that the book has given me were the things that the movies and the miniseries actually cut from the final product, which we're going to get to when I finish the Dune book and talk about that. They cut a lot of stuff out. All 3 adaptations have cut out a bunch of material. And I was able to pick that out, and maybe a couple things of the internal perspectives, like the character's thinking inside his head and all of that stuff. Maybe that might be the only new perspective of the stuff from the movies that I didn't see as clearly. I saw it clearer in the book there from those perspectives. But in terms of this, Dune Prophecy, it's like it's treating you like you have a middle school intellect. Like you are not intelligent enough to determine what's going on. There is a moment in the episode 6, in the final finale. There's an episode in the finale of episode 6 that's a full 1 to 2 minutes with no dialogue. It's just body language and emotions on the faces and all of that stuff. It's one of the best scenes in this entire season, and no words are spoken. It leaves it to you and trusts your intellect to figure out the emotions that are being portrayed in front of you. Nobody has to say what they're feeling. You could see it. You can empathize. You can feel it through what their facial features are doing. It's using the body language. It's engaging the audience in a way that just simply doing a bunch of exposition won't really do as well. I think that the problem with Dune Prophecy is also a lot of development hell things. I think Denis Villeneuve was supposed to be on the project, at least as a producer or to some capacity. He may have even been scheduled to direct one of the episodes. But then development hell set in, and they got writers in, and then those writers left, and they got new writers in. Those new writers left, and they got new writers in. And they got new writers in. The writers that they got are writers from other primetime shows. So that's why it feels like other primetime shows. It's because it was written by other primetime show writers. The original writers that they had planned for this show were actually Dune fans. They understood the material. They understood Dune. They understood how it felt to make a Dune setting, to write a story set in the Dune universe, like the Denis Villeneuve movies, where they at least understood Dune to a degree far more than this. And I don't blame the writers. I don't. It's just they were just picked for this position. They were probably just picked. They may have signed up for it because, hey, you know, when they're working on this, they get months and months of paychecks. So hey, you know, I can respect the grift. You know, I respect all of that stuff. It's not your fault at all. It really isn't. It is mostly the faults of people higher than you, a lot higher studio heads, network heads, and all that stuff. Those guys are making the decisions and picking and choosing and playing musical chairs with all the people down on the lower echelons. They play musical chairs and say, hey, get this person on this project, get this person on this project. Oh, is this person a fan of this? Oh, we don't care about that. We just need a writer to finish this episode. So get them over here. It becomes a conveyor belt of content where people are just making conveyor belt stuff but aren't actually fans of the things that they're writing for. And a lot of stuff suffers because of that. The Witcher suffered because of that. You need fans of the IPs to write for your IPs. You need fans of it. People who understand the universe. People who understand the narrative. People who understand the characters. People who care. That will really help. Trust me, it will help when you have people who care who take part in this. Now that's the bulk of my criticism, is with the writing part. The actual look, the feel of the show. The planet Wallach 9 or whatever, it was beautiful planet, beautiful settings. I love the idea of very minimalism. There are a lot of machines still used, but they're all entirely by man-made machines. No AI, artificial intelligence, and all that stuff. And I love the unique setting. Everything looks fantastically strange and alien, and yet it feels like it's a show set in the 1600s, but also in space. It is fantastic to look at. It is fantastic. The outfits, the design for the outfits for everybody, it looks great. I love that. I love the vehicles. I love the starships. I love all of that stuff. It's all fantastic to look at. The world is interesting. The sound design, the music, and all the sound effects and all that stuff, it's all good. It's all great. You're not gonna have any complaints from me there. My biggest complaint is with the writing. Because maybe it's just because I've been seeing a lot more of these. I've been watching a lot more prime time tier television TV shows, and it turns out that they're almost all written the same. They all look the same. They sound the same. There's a lot of intrigue going on. There's a lot of mirrored parallels with a lot of it. And the only way you could stand above that generic type of writing that's taken from other things, like from Twin Peaks, that style of storytelling, the only way you can elevate above it is if the IP is interesting enough. Dune, the IP is interesting enough to get over the writing enough for me to have watched all 6 episodes and say, yeah, if you like the IP, but you're not a Dune fanatic, you're probably going to like this show. If you've watched the movies, maybe you've watched the Lynch movie, maybe you've at least just read the first Dune book, but you haven't read the others, this isn't going to piss you off all that much. It's not going to tick you off. It's not going to make you hate this and say, wow, this is a garbage. No, it's not going to do that. At least I don't think it will. if you're a Dune fanatic, if you read all 6 of Frank Herbert's books, if you read the 20, 30 Brian Herbert books, if you're a big Dune fan, this is probably going to piss you off. I definitely think it's going to piss you off. Just like Rings of Power pissed me off because I'm a Tolkien fanatic. You know, it's probably going to piss you off if you're a Dune fanatic. But if you're a generic fan, you didn't read all the books. Maybe you just read one of them, the first one, obviously, and you watched the movies. This isn't going to anger you, but you might wish that it was written as good as the Denis Villeneuve films were. Because it looks as good as the Denis Villeneuve films look. It looks like it belongs to that universe, but it's not written like it belongs in it. It's not written like it belongs in this universe. If you understand what I'm trying to say there.